I cannot begin to tell you how happy I am to see Larian Studios succeed with the critical and commercial hit that is Baldur's Gate 3. The user score on Metacritic is maintaining its overwhelmingly positive score. If you go to Metacritic, while we haven't seen more critic reviews to give us a better picture for what the Metascore will be like, I'd be surprised if the game didn't maintain a high Metascore. And the Metacritic user score is still maintaining itself at a 9.3, this time from 446 ratings, whereas before the user score was at a 9.3 from 150 ratings. And then beyond that, the game is selling gangbusters based on the peak concurrent players and the fact that it keeps going up every day. On launch day, August 3rd, the peak was roughly at 470,000 players, and then that became 600,000 players on August 4th, yesterday, and then today, on August 5th, the game has peaked at over 700,000 players. This is massive, and keep in mind that the game isn't even out on PlayStation 5 yet, and the Xbox version is set to arrive sometime in 2024 is the prediction. The game isn't even out on consoles, and it's pulling numbers like these. Larian Studios is flying. Word is spreading about just how content-rich and feature-complete this game is. It's insane just how much content I've already discovered in what little of the map I've explored. Baldur's Gate 3 just feels like a video game in its purest form. No monetization, no exploitation, no artificial elements to try to keep you engaged or whatever. It just feels like the goal of the game was to maximize the fun and the immersion and the narrative and just bring out the best of Baldur's Gate and what makes Dungeons & Dragons special. Every bit of dialogue is well written, voiced, and all of it feels very cinematically presented. The gameplay, the way it's basically adapted the 5th edition D&D system one-to-one and how addictive the combat is. I mean, every aspect of this game just shines, and it looks fantastic to boot. I'm not saying that Baldur's Gate 3 is the only game that is massive and consumer-friendly and just rich in its content and substance, but there's just something about Baldur's Gate 3 that feels really special because it is a true RPG, the likes of which we haven't seen in a very long time, at least not to this degree of scale and richness, complexity, and player agency, and like true role-playing, you know? It feels like going back to an old friend, an old genre whose potential has been taken to its current apex. I hope to do a more dedicated video on Baldur's Gate 3 as a video game to talk about all of its merits, but beyond that, for this video, I want to talk about just how based Larian Studios as a developer is. On their official website, they have this FAQ section where they present a number of questions that people might have, and among the ones that they decided to highlight is this one right here: are there any in-game purchases? And their response is just absolutely perfect. No, there are no in-game purchases in our game. We believe in providing a complete and immersive gaming experience without the need for additional purchases. Enjoy the game to its fullest without any additional costs or microtransactions. People have already taken notice of this statement and it's gone viral. You can tell how much people are clamoring for these types of pure gaming experiences. How welcome these kinds of rare breed games are when they do come along on a AAA scale every once in a while. On some level, it's kind of sad that seeing a statement like this brings me so much joy because back in the good old days, this was just standard, right? Games were much more pure before corporate greed began to corrupt game design through the mandated implementation of monetization systems or artificial extension of gameplay that make games grindier so that the monetization systems can alleviate those artificially implemented insufferable elements. There's so much focus on live services with multiple types of premium currencies meant to confuse customers and meant to get them to spend as much money as possible so that they can reasonably obtain the rewards and items that they want or reasonably progress through the game. Even a lot of single-player games that come out in this day and age try to find some way to implement some form of microtransactions, with companies calling them time savers when the reality is that they just decided to take out features or content so that players would have to shell additional money on top of the $60 to $70 premium price point. And these are elements that do take you out of the game, that make you remember that this is a product rather than a fully immersive experience. But then a game like Baldur's Gate 3 comes out to remind us just how good we had it before microtransactions were normalized. But at the same time, it's good to see that these kinds of studios still exist, the ones who prioritize really giving players the most value out of their $60 to $70 purchase as possible. And I commend them for putting this on their website and making an official statement about this, because on some level, they're low-key calling out the rest of the industry, those big third-party publishers and companies who insist on compromises for the sake of profit, who insist on corrupting game design and player experience, because there are ways to use the interactive nature of video games to squeeze players and psychologically manipulate them. But a private and independent company like Larian Studios, who are self-published and who are their own bosses, don't have to adhere to those corporate agendas so long as the leader is as passionate about gaming as the community is. The leader of Larian Studios is Sven Vick, who is a gamer and a fan of fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons at heart. You can just see how much fun he's having with the creative process of this game. Like, you don't see frickin' Bobby Kotick doing stuff like this, do you? A studio like Larian Studios, a publisher like Larian Studios, is not common at all in this day and age. And so to see them succeed and to see them have this stance on in-game purchases and to see them just deliver such a pure video game and to see the audience and the people react accordingly by buying this game and enjoying it en masse with concurrent players peaking higher and higher every day, it just warms my heart, and it gives me hope that, more development studios, up-and-comers or established ones, will follow this model and understand that this model is sorely missed and can be highly successful if you deliver. And what makes Larian Studios even more based is that its CEO has come out to say that it intends to stay private and independent. It intends to not be corrupted by corporations who may be looking to acquire Larian Studios. A few days ago, on August 3rd, 2023, news outlet Bloomberg released an article titled "The Strange Story Behind Baldur's Gate 3, One of the Year's Biggest Releases." Reporter Jason Schreier spoke to Larian Chief Executive Officer, or CEO, Sven Vick. And among the topics that was brought up was a list of potential acquisitions that Microsoft and Xbox were trying to make. I believe this was information that came out as part of their court proceedings with the FTC in regards to the Activision Blizzard acquisition and whether that's anti-competitive or not. Microsoft has this internal mergers and acquisitions consideration list from back in 2021. And you can see that this list included some major players, including Bungie, FromSoft, CD Projekt, Hello Games, IO Interactive, Crytek. And among those listed was none other than Larian Studios, developers of Divinity and Baldur's Gate 3. Jason Schreier brought this up to Vick alongside speculation that an Xbox acquisition of Larian might still be in consideration, to which Vick straight up said, "I'm getting older, but I'm certainly not done yet." He has no plans to sell anytime soon. A new owner might pressure Larian to maximize profit while curtailing its creative choices, Vick said. And then this is a direct quote: "The strength of this company is that I'm very invested in the gameplay and I also make the ultimate decisions. We can do things in service of the games we're making." That's the thing about Vick. He's not just a businessman who's a CEO. He is a gamer who's a CEO. He values these franchises, these video games, as much as we do, so he puts that passion back into the games and doesn't want that to be corrupted by corporate greed, by the pursuit for profit, because for him, that's not the end goal. For him, the end goal is that creative fulfillment and giving players a really special experience through the interactive nature of video games, this very special medium that's so unique that he's also so passionate about. This is a CEO who's also a big fan of the projects that he's undertaking and understands the responsibility that he has to players. And so the top priority for him is to do these games justice, to make the game that is the dream game for him, and in turn the dream game for players, the game that he would want to play and experience and realize. And it's a beautiful thing. It's all too rare. And it pleases me to hear that Vick has no intentions to sell Larian Studios anytime soon, because it is my belief that a game like Baldur's Gate 3 would never be made under a more corporate environment. A game like Baldur's Gate 3 exists because it's a labor of love. It is a genuine passion project and not just a profit-driven project. Larian Studios being a private and independent company and having a CEO who's essentially like the creative director of its projects and who is creatively invested in these projects, that affords a level of flexibility, a level of passion, and that passion being allowed to shine to its fullest degree that I feel like it's just not possible in another environment where there is a corporate overlord who oversees everything and who wants things done a certain way or by a certain time. Baldur's Gate 3 is a product of a studio that could really do whatever they wanted, push their ambitions however far they could, was well managed, unless there's some behind-the-scenes stuff that I haven't heard about. But given that Baldur's Gate 3 came out the way it did, and given that Vink himself has come out and said that the reason he delayed the console versions was because, in part, he didn't want his developers, the people working under him, his employees, and his colleagues to crunch. Like, all of that suggests that, Larian Studios is just a gem of a publisher, a company, and development team. Just every aspect of Baldur's Gate 3 was so well handled. From the early access, it is, I think, one of the best uses of early access. They allowed players to play a significant portion of the game, thereby allowing the community to play test elements and provide feedback that was then used to improve the game. Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't over-marketed, they didn't overpromise too much on anything, and they didn't output these fake, overly decorated trailers. They often just showed the game, its flaws and all. And then at the end of the day, they delivered a massive game full of substantial content with rich RPG systems, with a tabletop system fully intact. They didn't rush the console versions out. They didn't pull a Cyberpunk where they shipped completely broken console versions. Instead, they evaluated the situation, realized that they needed to prioritize the PC version and delay the PlayStation 5 version till September, and the Xbox version they need to delay further because they need extra time to implement split-screen co-op on Xbox Series S. Nothing about the game feels phoned in or artificially crafted. Everything just feels meticulously handcrafted. Every bit of content feels like it was done with care, and no monetization systems or microtransaction schemes to corrupt the gameplay design. The one thing you might pay extra for is the deluxe edition of the game. So on Steam, that'd be $70. On PlayStation 5, that'd be $80, which comes with a few goodies like the digital original soundtrack, a digital art book, digital character sheets, and some little bits of items and content in the game that are neat little extras, but you're really not missing out on much at all by not purchasing the digital deluxe edition. You can see the details if you go to the Steam page and browse through the screenshots. I, for one, personally would have no qualms getting the more expensive edition or paying that extra $10 after the fact just to support the studio because of what a remarkable video game they've constructed here, and because of their display of consumer friendliness and not compromising on the integrity of their creativity that is harder and harder to find in the modern day AAA gaming landscape. So just lots of kudos to Larian. Just big congrats to them on the massive critical and commercial success of this game. Here's to whatever may come next for this studio. I wish them all the best. Larian Studios is proving to be the developers that we need, but not the one we deserve. Anyway, that's my take on all of the awesome developments surrounding Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Baldur's Gate 3 and what your experience has been like with the game if you've been checking it out. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.